जय नित्य लीला प्रविष्ट ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र शत श्री श्रीमद्भाय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय नित्य लीला प्रविष्ट ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र शत श्री श्रीमद्भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय नित्य लीला प्रविष्ट ओम विष्णुपाद श्रील गौर किशोर दास बाबाजी महाराज की जय। जय नित्य लीला प्रविष्ट ओम विष्णुपाद श्रील सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। जय नित्य लीला प्रविष्ट ओम विष्णुपाद वैष्णव सर्वभौम श्रीला जगन्नाथदास बाबाजी महाराज की जय। श्री गौरी वैष्णव गुरुवर्ग की जय। नमाचार्य श्रीला हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्री वसति गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। श्री नवद्वीप धाम की जय। गंगामयी की जय। जमुनामयी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओ गौरी समुद्रवरीज हरे कृष्ण। ओ गौरी समुद्रवरीज हरे कृष्ण। ओ गौरी समुद्रवरीज हरे कृष्ण। ओ गौरीज all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so somehow or another, it is a long stretch of texts that we have to get through today. So let's dive in. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Atrina chodito hantum Prithuputro Maharatha Anvadhavata Sankruddhas Tishta Tishtheti Chabravit Atrina chodito hantum Prithuputro Maharatha Anvadhavata Sankruddhas Tishta Tishtheti Chabravit Atrina chodito hantum Prithuputro Maharatha Anvadhavata Sankruddhas Tishta Tishtheti Chabravit. Atrina chodito hantum Prituputro Maharatha Anvadhavata Sankruddhas Tishta Tishtheti Chabravit. Atrito chodito hantum Prituputro Maharatha Anvadhavata Sankruddhas Tishta Tishtheti Chabravit. Atrina chodito hantum Prithuputro Maharatha Anvadhavata Sankruddhas Tishta Tishtheti Chabravit. Mataji's. Atrina chodito hantum पृथुपुत्रो महारथः अन्धावत संक्रुद्धस् तिष्ठ तिष्ठेति चाब्रवीत् अत्रिनाचोदितो हन्तुम् पृथुपुत्रो महारथः अन्वधावत संक्रुद्धस् तिष्ठ तिष्ठेति चाब्रवीत्. Atrina, by the great sage Atri, choditaha, being encouraged, hantum, to kill, Prithu putraha, the son of King Prithu, Maharathaha, a great hero, Anvadhavata, followed, Sankruddhaha, being very angry, Tishtha tishtha, just wait, iti, thus, cha, also, abravit, he said. Translation. When the son of King Prithu was informed by King Atri of King Indra's trick, he immediately became very angry and followed Indra to kill him, calling, wait, wait. Purport. The words tishtha tishtha are used by a kshatriya when he challenges his enemy. When fighting, a kshatriya cannot flee from the battlefield. However, when a kshatriya out of cowardice flees from the battlefield, showing his back to his enemy, he is challenged with the words tishtha tishtha. A real kshatriya does not kill his enemy from behind, nor does a real kshatriya turn his back on the battlefield. According to kshatriya principle and spirit, one either attains victory or dies on the battlefield. Although King Indra was very exalted, being the king of heaven, he became degraded due to his stealing the horse intended for sacrifice. Therefore he fled without observing the kshatriya principles, and the son of Prithu had to challenge him with the words tishtha tishtha. So we have to keep going. I think you could probably give a class on this text in purport, I think, but the verse scheduling WhatsApp group they'll have my head, I think. I'll mess up whoever's preparing for tomorrow. I don't want to mess up tomorrow's devotee, so no, I'll keep going. I don't want to inconvenience the Vaishnavas who are prepared for the further days. So we'll keep going. I'll read out the English. And then we'll do the Sanskrit and English for text 22, which will be the end of this epic, if we will. King Indra was fraudulently dressed as a sannyasi, having knotted his hair on his head and smeared ashes all over his body. Upon seeing such dress, the son of King Prithu considered Indra a religious man and a pious sannyasi. Therefore, he did not release his arrows. When Atri Muni saw that the son of King Prithu did not kill Indra, but returned deceived by him, Atri Muni again instructed him to kill the heavenly king because he thought that Indra had become the lowliest of all demigods due to his impeding the execution of King Prithu's sacrifice. Being thus informed, the grandson of King Vena immediately began to follow Indra, who was fleeing through the sky in great haste. He was very angry with him, and he chased him just as the king of the vultures chased Ravana. When Indra saw that the son of Prithu was chasing him, he immediately abandoned his false dress and left the horse. Indeed, he disappeared from that very spot, and the great hero, the son of Maharaj Prithu, returned the horse to his father's sacrificial arena. My dear Lord Vidura, when the great sages observed the wonderful prowess of the son of King Prithu, they all agreed to give him the name Vijitashva. My dear Vidura, Indra, being the king of heaven and very powerful, immediately brought a dense darkness upon the sacrificial arena. Covering the whole scene in this way, he again took away the horse, which was chained with golden shackles near the wooden instrument where animals were sacrificed. The great sage Atri again pointed out to the son of King Prithu that Indra was fleeing through the sky. The great hero, the son of Prithu, chased him again. But when he saw that Indra was carrying in his hand a staff with a skull at the top and was again wearing the dress of a sannyasi, he still chose not to kill him. When the great sage Atri again gave directions, the son of King Prithu became very angry and placed an arrow on his bow. Upon seeing this, King Indra immediately abandoned the false dress of a sannyasi and, giving up the horse, made himself invisible. Now maybe we'll say the Sanskrit and the translation for text 22. If everyone has it, text 22. Okay. Viraschashvamupadaya Pitra yagyam athavrajat Tadavadyam hare rupam Jagrur jnana durbalaha. Translation. Then the great hero Vijitashva, the son of King Prithu, again took the horse and returned to his father's sacrificial arena. Since that time, certain men with a poor fund of knowledge have adopted the dress of a false sannyasi. It was King Indra who introduced this. Purport. Since time immemorial, the sannyas order has carried the Tridanda. Later, Shankaracharya introduced the Ekadandi sannyas. A Tridandi sannyasi is a Vaishnava sannyasi, and an Ekadanda sannyasi is a Mayavadi sannyasi. There are many other types of sannyasis who are not approved by Vedic rituals. A type of pseudo-sannyasi was introduced by Indra when he tried to hide himself from the attack of Vijitashva, the great son of King Prithu. Now there are many different types of sannyasis. Some of them go naked, and some of them carry a skull and trident, generally known as kapalik. All of them were introduced under some meaningless circumstances, and those who have a poor fund of knowledge accept these false sannyasis and their pretenses, although they are not bona fide guides to spiritual advancement. At the present moment, some missionary institutions, without referring to the Vedic rituals, have introduced some sannyasis who engage in sinful activities. The sinful activities forbidden by the Shastras are illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling. These so-called sannyasis indulge in all these activities. They eat meat and flesh, fish, eggs, and just about everything. They sometimes drink with the excuse that without alcohol, fish, and meat, it is impossible to remain in the cold countries near the Arctic zone. These sannyasis introduce all these sinful activities in the name of serving the poor, and consequently, poor animals are cut to pieces and go into the bellies of these sannyasis. As described in the following verses, such sannyasis are pakhandis. Vedic literature states that a person who puts Lord Narayan on the level with Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma immediately becomes a pakhandi. As stated in the Puranas, Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahma Rudradi Daivataihi Samatvenaiva Viksheta Sappashpashandi Bhaved Dhruvam. In Kali Yuga, the pakhandis are very prominent. However, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has tried to kill all these pakhandis by introducing his Sankirtan movement. Those who take advantage of this Sankirtan movement of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness will be able to save themselves from the influence of these pakhandis. Translations and purports by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Soyam Rupa Kadama Hyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Goratashe Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we are reading this very amusing pastime, and of course we have two purports to discuss. I'll focus mainly on text 22. Purport, but we'll try to discuss as much as we can. Srimad Bhagavatam is Amlam Puranam. It is a ocean of rasa. It's an ocean of nectar, and sometimes we can think that even one word is enough. We can give weeks and weeks of classes on just one word if we have the ability to realize. I don't have the ability to realize, so I'm happy that I have at least 10 verses to speak on today. Maybe I'll fill up the time with that, but. But if we have the eyes to see, we will find not even one word, one syllable of Srimad Bhagavatam. It can be spoken on forever and ever and ever. Bhagavatam is this infinite ocean. I feel like sometimes, I remember I was hearing one class by one of my godbrothers, and he was speaking about the Damodar pastime. And he was talking about how Mother Jashoda, she's churning in the pot, right? And he was talking about the pot, not the churning, the pot. And he spoke for 1 hour on the pot, and he was describing the pot, and he was drawing all these references from different commentators in, and I was thinking, wow, this is Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam. How else could it be? Krishna, he is so full of ras, he is Rasaraj, and this Srimad Bhagavatam, this is Krishna in the form of a book. Anyways, so we have lots to discuss, and never enough time. Right? My Guru Maharaj actually, he says that Srimad Bhagavatam class, it is for neophyte devotees. I remember when I heard this point, I thought, Guru Maharaj is very well known for Srimad Bhagavatam class. I thought, it's a bit like if Indra Prabhu said, kirtan's just for just for neophytes, right? And then Guru Maharaj elaborated and he said, Srimad Bhagavatam class is for neophyte devotees because neophytes need to be told, okay, now you sit down and you hear and discuss Bhagavatam for an hour. The moment we go even a tiny bit beyond the neophyte platform, we'll be discussing Bhagavatam 24 hours a day. This is why Srimad Bhagavatam class is on the neophyte platform. Not because it is discussing Bhagavatam for an hour, but because it is discussing Srimad Bhagavatam only for an hour. I remember I asked my Shiksha Guru once, I said, how should I progress in my spiritual life? Right? And he told me, he said, study Srimad Bhagavatam incessantly. Study it without pause. Every moment of your life should be about studying Srimad Bhagavatam. If that means repeating what you have heard to others, if that means hearing what others have heard, if that means feeding yourself so that your body will stay together so you can keep turning the pages, that is what that means. But it means that every action should be there to go deeper into the Srimad Bhagavatam. We will never exhaust this text. We'll never exhaust Srimad Bhagavatam. And we'll never exhaust what Srila Prabhupada has pulled out of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we are discussing all of this. Anyways, I don't want to do a glories of Srimad Bhagavatam for the rest of the time we have. So we're hearing Tishta Tishta, right? And of course, I think it's said in Mahabharata that the glories of the Kshatriya is that they will always face the enemy in battle. They will never turn their back to their enemy. And the glory of the Brahmana is that they will never turn their back to a cold bath. This is a saying in Mahabharata. So let's be happy that Prabhupada expected us to be ideal Brahmanas, not ideal Kshatriyas, right? We got the easier end of the bargain. So this is said in Mahabharata, and there's a focus in this pastime. Of course, we could discuss the story, but maybe there's some themes we can unpack. And one of the central focuses of this is authenticity in one's vocation, authenticity in one's position, right? And we see here the very authentic Kshatriya is being discussed, and then the very inauthentic sannyasi is being discussed. And of course, Prabhupada, he speaks about the sannyasa order. He speaks about this Tridanda order. Whenever I hear this word, I'm reminded of Pujyapat Suhotra Swami Maharaj. Whenever he would refer to Srila Prabhupada, he'd always say, Tridandi Bhikshu Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Tridandi. This, of course, refers to the 4 sticks that is carried in our sannyasa order. There's the 3 in the central staff, and then there's the 4th at the top, representing the jiva. This is interesting. This is the ancient form of sannyas, and it is of course the form of sannyas that our Guru Varga has adopted. We see Srila Prabhupada, when he was living in Vrindavan, he had still not yet taken up to this renounced sannyas order. And maybe I'll discuss a little bit about Prabhupada took sannyas. I'm just trying to think what I should cut, what I shouldn't say. When Prabhupada was writing, he was writing a lot. And he was writing reflecting on the Bhakti Shastras. And when he was writing, reflecting on these Bhakti Shastras, he had written so well that one of his senior godbrothers, Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj, Pujyapat Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj, he was very pleased. And so he gave him the title Bhakti Siddhanta. And so we can actually see this. There's some text Prabhupada would sign, Abhaya Charanaravinda Bhakti Siddhanta. Right? This is a title that Srila Prabhupada had received. And of course, upon receiving this, there was some sort of kerfuffle. Some devotees were upset. Well, some of his godbrothers were upset and some weren't. Right? There was a bit of a discussion. Some were saying, is it appropriate that we give Guru Maharaj, of course for them Guru Maharaj is Srila Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, right? Is it appropriate that we give Guru Maharaj's title to any one of us? And so they were debating. Some said it is fine. He is writing so nicely. Why should we be conservative-minded like this? And others were saying, no, I won't take the title and no one else should take the title either. So because there was some dispute, some disagreement, they all came together. And they were having a Ishta Goshti to discuss what should happen. And at that point, Srila Prabhupada's friend among his godbrothers, Pujyapat and Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, he said, okay, what we will do is instead we will substitute a new name. Siddhanta and Vedanta, they mean the same thing. So instead of Bhakti Siddhanta, he shall be called Bhakti Vedanta. And in this way, Prabhupada, even before taking sannyas, actually received the title Bhakti Vedanta. And upon hearing this, Pujyapat Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, who as we know would later become the sannyas guru of Srila Prabhupada, was so inspired, thinking, what a charming idea, Bhakti Vedanta. This way we can trace that we are attached to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur without taking his name. He actually gave that title to all of his sannyas disciples. Right? So all his sannyas disciples, they're Bhakti Vedanta this, Bhakti Vedanta that. So then later on, Srila Prabhupada, as he's going along, now he is Bhakti Vedanta Abhaya Charanaravinda Prabhu. Of course, Srila Saraswati Thakur appears in his dream and tells him to take sannyas. Prabhupada, he very sweetly, he says at this point he was afraid. He was afraid, he felt fear. The renounced order of life is not a casual thing. It is not something light to be taken up, right? It is not something overt enthusiasm in a moment of fickle-minded passion to be adopted. And so Prabhupada very appropriately felt fear at the idea of adopting the renounced order of life. But still, Prabhupada very simply adopted this instruction of his spiritual master. And so he went actually to Sridhar Maharaj. There's a whole connection with that, because he went to Maharaj and he said, I would like to take sannyas. But because when Prabhupada was a grihastha, he was doing as grihasthas should, right? He was hosting all the sannyasis, all of his godbrothers. What would happen is Prabhupada lived in a 2-story house, right? And so the top floor was set aside for visiting sadhus. And Prabhupada would take care of visiting brahmacharis, visiting sannyasis like this. Actually, we know brahmacharya is the beginning, the first stage of life, right? Then grihastha, then vanaprast, then sannyas, right? But sannyas and brahmacharya life, they're very similar because they are most strongly defined by brahmacharya. All the other ashrams as well, right? But grihastha ashram, much less so, right? Although ideally it should be as well. And vanaprastha ashram is like a, it's a watercolor, faded out grihastha ashram, we can say, right? And so the point is that in ashrams where brahmacharya is emphasized, because brahmacharya is the beginning and the end, it's said that those who are in the renounced order of life, they are like the children and the old people of society. They are meant to be maintained. It is the duty of grihasthas to take care of those in the renounced order of life. This is the main purpose in society of the grihastha. Because in the same way that the grihastha has a responsibility to take care of their own children, they also have to take care of the brahmacharis and sannyasis. Because just like children, the brahmachari and sannyasi has no immediate family besides the grihasthas to take care of them. And they have no source of income. They have no source of shelter. So this is the dharma of the grihastha. It is not just to produce children and take care of them. It is to produce children, take care of the children, and take care of those in the renounced order of life. So Srila Prabhupada, being an ideal grihastha, was doing this. And he was hosting all of these sannyasis upstairs. And it's described Prabhupada, he would go upstairs and he would discuss with them Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, like this. So because of this, Sridhar Maharaj had been one that Prabhupada had often hosted. And so Maharaj, he felt that he didn't want to give sannyas because he was worried that the rest of Prabhupada's family would become alienated. They would become angry at him because he had some of a relationship with them, because he had been staying. And he didn't want to turn them away from Krishna consciousness by creating a bad impression. So he said, instead, I've given sannyas to Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj. So you should take sannyas from him because it's the same as taking from me. Take from somebody I gave sannyas to. So in this way, Prabhupada, he went to Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, and then Maharaj, he said, you should take sannyas immediately. And then only a few, maybe even one day later, a few days later, do we know which day did Srila Prabhupada take sannyas? Vishwarup Mahotsav. On Vishwarup Mahotsav, Srila Prabhupada, he was given sannyas. Now Vishwarup Mahotsav is an interesting day, and I'll come to its details a little bit more. I'll also discuss maybe a little bit Mahaprabhu's sannyas, if that is fine. If time permits, rather. But we'll discuss a little bit more about the details of that. But Vishwarup Mahotsav is the day that Vishwarup, the older brother of Mahaprabhu, took sannyas. It is also, by some calculations, the day that Srimad Bhagavatam was finished. The 7 days had been complete. And so there's two dimensions there. One is that, of course, Prabhupada, he is taking sannyas, right? He's taking sannyas on that day that the great brother of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taken sannyas, and so there are wonderful echoes of that. But also there's this wonderful echo of Srimad Bhagavatam is complete on this day. Srimad Bhagavatam has been finished on this day. What happens? Bhagavatam is finished. We are reading Bhagavatam. We complete it. What do we do? What should we do? Do we sit down? Are we happy with the poetry that we've read? Are we happy that our lives are now better, that we understand reality more? No. What do? We take the Srimad Bhagavatam and we preach it. And Srila Prabhupada, we can see this, right? Prabhupada, the 7 days of Bhagavatam are complete. And now what is meant to the completion of Bhagavatam? Take sannyas, spread Krishna consciousness all around the world. Prabhupada here is showing us this. This is what we do with Vedic knowledge. I remember I was hearing from the great sadhu, Pitbull, he's the rapper. I was hearing something one of my friends shared with me. I thought it was actually very sweet. He said, people say money can't buy happiness, but money can buy happiness. You just have to give it away, right? And I thought, actually, that's very profound for a rapper, right? But even more, what greater wealth is there than money? So many greater wealths. But the greatest of all wealths is the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam. We will truly attain its joys. We will truly attain its pleasures by distributing this knowledge. Srila Prabhupada has shown this. Bhagavatam is complete, now take it and share it. So Srila Prabhupada, he takes sannyas on this day, and he receives, again, the title Bhakti Vedanta. He was already Bhakti Vedanta. That's why I said that little pastime at the beginning. Even though Prabhupada later, at this point, there have been other Bhakti Vedanta XYZ Maharajas initiated. Prabhupada is the original Bhakti Vedanta. And so Keshav Maharaj, as was his pattern at that point, gave the title Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj. Right? And of course we know this point. Prabhupada's name is Swami. Right? It's not Bhakti Vedanta, that is his title, but his name, Swami. And then of course later on, Srila Prabhupada. So in this way, Prabhupada, he has received sannyas and he's taken up to the sannyas order. And of course, this was very ideal. The sannyas order is very, very beloved by our acharyas. We know Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, in his enthusiasm, and there was lots of enthusiasm for printing his books, he referred to the printing press as the Brihat Mridanga, right? This is the means by which the Sankirtan can be heard all around the world. But Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada also referred to his sannyasis as his living mridangas, because these are the mridangas that will go on their own, and they'll take kirtan everywhere. They will take this Sankirtan and organically spread it, right? The printing press is the Brihat Mridanga, and the book distributor is the living Mridanga. So in this way, the sannyas order is very, very important in our line. And of course, I heard once one class by one sannyas disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Not very many left, right? And so he was discussing about the day that he took sannyas. I think it was Gaur Purnima. And he was saying, I don't know, somebody asked her, he just organically said, he said, sometimes people ask me, why did you take sannyas? What motivated you? And then he said, Prabhupada said that he wanted sannyasis to preach. So I thought, I want to make Prabhupada happy. So I took sannyas, right? Such a simple mindset. We can overcomplicate our decisions so much. This factor, that factor, this thing that says that, this shastra says this. But, will this be better for my bhakti? Will that be better for my bhakti? But this is bogus. We won't go anywhere with this, right? We should think, what will make Guru Gauranga happy? That's simple. And if we don't know, we can ask them, right? And if we can't ask them, then we're in a bit of a pickle. Then we need to fix our spiritual life that somehow or another we are able to access Diksha Guru or Shiksha Guru. So, sannyas is very important in our line. Very important. But we might wonder in this purport, Prabhupada, he's making such a big point about Tridanda sannyas, but when does Tridanda sannyas get introduced in our sampradaya? Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, right? You look at our altar, there's not many sannyasis before Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. When you go to Mayapur, you'll see they wrap the photos of all of the different acharyas in cloth sometimes when it's cold, right? And it's very sweet. Prabhupada gets a saffron sweater, Saraswati Thakur gets a saffron sweater, and then all the other acharyas get white sweaters, right? For Babaji ashram and for Grihastha ashram, right? So, why then is this emphasis on Tridanda sannyas? We can get confused and we can get bewildered if we think too much again with the formalities, right? Yes, on the one hand, the Diksha line of our sannyas begins with Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, where he very famously takes sannyas from the photo of Pujapad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. That is true. But we can miss that the essence of Tridanda sannyas, which is what? Giving body, mind, word, and one's very self in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This sannyas, this vairagya, in terms of shiksha, has been present throughout our sampradaya, right? Srila Prabhupada, he has received both his diksha and shiksha and sannyas. His diksha from his godbrother, but then tracing through his godbrother to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he has received that. But he has also received the shiksha from seeing how his spiritual master embodied the sannyasa ashram. And maybe Gaur Kishore Das Babaji did not give Babaji Vesh to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. But did not Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada learn what renunciation is from the shiksha of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji? And maybe Gaur Kishore Das Babaji did not receive Babaji Vesh from Pujapad Sri Satchidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But did Bhaktivinoda Thakur not completely embody vairagya and renunciation even in the Grihastha ashram? I remember once Pujapad Srila Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj, he was giving a class on the glories of Vanaprastha. You can imagine, Maharaj, he gave a very heavy class. I was there, it was in Mayapur. And of course, all the brahmacharis were there on one side and all the grihasthas were there on one side. And by the end of the class, all the brahmacharis were smiling and all the grihasthas were stressed out because Maharaj gives heavy we have this concept of the brahmachari class, but I think Maharaj never got introduced to it. Every class is a brahmachari class. So Maharaj, he was giving this class, and then at the end, one grihastha put his hand up and he said, Maharaj, you're talking about the glories of the renounced orders of life. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a grihastha his whole life. And then Jayadvaita Maharaj, he said, yes. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur's renunciation was greater than any sannyasi's alive today. So, this is the shiksha of vairagya coming through, right? Like this shiksha line of vairagya. So it is no concern that this shiksha takes the external form of white in one generation and saffron in the next, because that essence is there always. That essence of vairagya. And we can trace that essence of vairagya all the way back. Moha Prabhur Bhakto Goner Boiraggo Pradhan. Do you know this verse? Okay. This is the first time in my life I've known a verse Manakrit Prabhu doesn't. I'm feeling very, actually Prabhu's being humble, I'm sure he does know. Jaha dekhi prit hoye Gaur Bhagavan. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his devotees, Bhakto Goner, Vairagya, their Vairagya is Pradhan. What does Pradhan mean? Pradhan, one sense, it means that primordial substance. Pradhan is that from which the Mahat, the origin of all the elements, emerges from. So, on one sense, their Vairagya, their renunciation, it is essential to who they are. Pradhan also, Prodhan. Also in Bengali means chiefmost, foremost. So two things. One, the Vairagya of the associates of Mahaprabhu. It is essential to their very fabric, essential to their being, essential to who they are. On the other hand, because it is essential to who they are known as the most renounced of all people. And then what? Jaha dekhi preet hun Gaur Bhagavan. Gaur Bhagavan, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, upon seeing this, Jaha dekhi, he is filled with happiness. So clearly, Vairagya is very important all the way up to Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who himself took sannyas. Of course, Mahaprabhu took Mayavad sannyas, Ekadanda sannyas. But we know very famously, what does Nityananda Prabhu do with Mahaprabhu's Ekadanda? He breaks it into three, right? To show in this one Ekdanda were actually three dandas hidden. Because how could Mahaprabhu take a Mayavad sannyas? Huh? How could Mahaprabhu take sannyas of the Mayavadi? So hidden within this one danda are the three dandas of three danda sannyas. So even though, again, externally, by ritual, Mahaprabhu has taken this sannyas order, internally, in essence, sorry, I get excited about the shiksha idea. In essence, right? In essence, there are three danda within the ekadanda. And by breaking it, throwing it into the river, Nityananda Prabhu, he is showing this. Do not let the world be fooled that Mahaprabhu is a Mayavadi sannyasi. Let the world know that he is a Vaishnava sannyasi. Actually, there's a temple where those three were dropped in the ISKCON temple, Danda Bhanga Dham. You can go there. You can visit. I've never been, but I've seen photos of it. You can go there. There's one disciple of Gaur Govinda Maharaj, Srila Sachinandan Prabhu. He started that temple. He did some research. I don't know what his process was, but he did some research and he said this is the spot where Nityananda Prabhu threw the three pieces of Mahaprabhu's Ekadanda. So in this way we can see this lineage, the shiksha of Vairagya flowing through all the way back to Mahaprabhu. Flowing all the way back to Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu, of course, he would tell all of his associates, I'm going to take sannyas. I'm going to go take sannyas. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And he said it so many times that people stopped taking it seriously after a while, right? Initially, they were worried and they give all these counter-arguments. This is why you shouldn't take sannyas. This is why you shouldn't take sannyas. This is why you shouldn't take sannyas, right? But eventually, they thought he's not going to do it. And they were very happy about this. Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes in one bhajan, he says, when will Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu give up his sannyas and return to Navadvip? Normally we don't pray for somebody to give up their sannyas. But this is the mood of the Navadvip Vasis. This is their mood. Their mood is, when will Mahaprabhu come back to us? They don't care for the sannyas ashram. They care for their beautiful Nimai Pandit. Everyone in Navadvip loved Mahaprabhu, except for one group of people, the Vaishnavas. They sort of thought, Nimai Pandit, he's a good fella and everything, but he's wasting his life. What's he doing, studying and doing all of these fancy academic things, teaching logic, this Navanyaya school, right? He's too materialistic, this Nimai Pandit. So the Vaishnavas weren't, they were fond of him. They thought he was a good person, but they weren't too fond of the way that he was living his life. And then, of course, he came back from his fateful trip, his fateful travels, and he began to teach Sanskrit in a very different way. And at this point, even the Vaishnavas started to like Mahaprabhu. So in this way, everyone is intoxicated by Mahaprabhu. But eventually, of course, he goes and he takes sannyas. He crosses over the Ganga. He says, tell only 5 people. Only 5 people should know that I'm about to take sannyas. Of course, we know the sannyas, it's triggered by that one Brahmin who felt that he could join the kirtan. Why? On virtue. On virtue of what? On virtue of, I only drink milk. I only drink milk, therefore, because of this renunciation, I will be able to join. And what do we hear? This is no qualification. Vairagya is not a qualification to enter into the Sankirtan of Mahaprabhu. Oh, now this is confusing. Did we not just hear? Gaur Bhagavan, he is so pleased by Vairagya. He is so pleased by the Vairagya of his devotees. Did we not just hear that? So this is confusing. How do we understand this? How do we understand that Gaur Bhagavan, he is somehow pleased by Vairagya, and yet Vairagya is not enough to join his Sankirtan? This is an interesting point. And we see this again, I was mentioning last week in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami, he says this. He says, Vairagya and Jnana are not angas of bhakti, and they are only useful insofar as they might help us eventually reach bhakti in our spiritual life. And then, does anyone remember? Last week I said there's the reason why he says that Vairagya and Jnana actually are not helpful sometimes in bhakti. That's why they shouldn't be emphasized. Does anyone remember? Sorry, I'm quizzing. Yes? They can harden the heart, right? So Rupa Goswami here said this, and now we are even more confused. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale, right? This person who has understood the heart of Mahaprabhu, who has established it on the earth, he is now saying that same Vairagya that apparently is making Mahaprabhu so happy, just drop it. It's not needed. In fact, too much of it, it goes from Vairagya Pradhan to too much of this Vairagya will hinder your bhakti. Now we are in a confusing place. So maybe we'll discuss a little bit about this. What we hear is that in this material world, people, they're under all sorts of shelters. Many people will say, I do not have any parampara. But in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says, Atmanathor Athatmanob Nartha Bhutasya, right? Yato Nartha Parampara. It says that all of these living beings in this world, they are all in one parampara. And what is that parampara? It is the parampara of anarthas. Anartha parampara. So we will feel, oh, I don't have a parampara. Oh, you know, Prabhu, you know, Mataji, I'm not really under the shelter of a guru yet. I don't have a parampara. I'm looking. Actually, when somebody is not yet at the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas, they are under the shelter of a parampara. The anartha parampara. The parampara of suffering, of perpetual things that, again, anartha, have no value. So, with this anartha parampara, or the other way Prabhupada renders parampara here is he says one after the other in this material world. One after another, after another, after another, after another. All these worthless things are emerging, right? But there is some artha. And where does this artha, what does it do? Sansritis tad vyavachedo bhaktya parabaya guru, right? Through bhakti to the guru, then artha will come. Through surrender to the spiritual master, then artha will come. Now, why have I brought up this point? Because the next text says, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Samahitaha Sudrichirena Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Janayishyati. Vairagya and Jnana, Janayishyati, they will be born with the establishment of what? Of this Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga. Right. So, what is the difference between the Vairagya that makes Mahaprabhu happy and the Vairagya that hardens the heart? One is emerging, is born from Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga. One is emerging from Bhakti Yoga towards Krishna. And naturally, the more satisfied we are in Krishna, the more we will be naturally detached from this world. Mahaprabhu, he is so pleased by the vairagya and renunciation of his followers because it has come from their strong attachment to Krishna. And Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, he is very worried by the other form of vairagya because it is coming out of hatred for the world, out of disturbance with the world, out of a hardening of the heart. That vairagya which comes before bhakti, that vairagya is not very useful. That vairagya which comes as a byproduct of bhakti, that is so pleasing to Gaur Bhagavan. So in this way, this distinction is made. And so naturally, how can we attain this vairagya? How can we attain this vairagya that is so pleasing to Mahaprabhu, right? How can we attain it? Again, the first half of the verse. Bhaktya paramaya guru, right? By surrendering to Guru, the spiritual master. Through surrender to the spiritual master, in this way, we will practice a form of bhakti that will give birth to vairagya and jnana. What sort of vairagya? What sort of jnana? The sort that will bring us to Krishna, right? Evam satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam. How does it end? Yena mam upayanti te, right? Yena mam upayanti te, right? The gyan that brings us to Krishna, right? This is not gyan of the world. This is not gyan of renunciation. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says this is vilakshana gyan. This is the sort of gyan that explains to us who is Krishna and what is that gyan. What food does he like to eat? What colored dhoti does God wear, right? What sort of music does he play on his flute? This sort of gyan is the gyan that will arise. So jnana, vairagya, they arise through surrender and service to the spiritual master. And what do we get from the spiritual master? Athatma northa. We get true artha. And what is this artha? Achinoti yashastrartham achare stapayatyapi. Stapatayapi. It's such a tongue twister, that one. Swayam acharate yasmad acharyastena kirtitaha. This acharya is the person who has gone into the Shastra, who has gone into the hearts of the Shastra, who has taken Shastrartha, who has taken the Artha, the wealth of Shastra, and who has established it in the world in their practice and by telling people what is the practice that they can attain that too. Acharyastena kirtitaha. And such a person is glorified as Acharya. So, this is the wealth, the Artha that is being given. It is the wealth of Shastra. And what is the wealth of Shastra? What is the Shastra about? Shrinvatam svakatha Krishnaha punya shravana kirtana hridyantastho hyabhadrani vidhunoti suhritsatam. So, we are hearing that the wealth of Shastra, that the wealth of Krishna Katha, it is that Krishna himself is dwelling in the heart. And thus we should never harden this heart, because how will we be able to attain that wealth of Shastra that is contained within it? Because it must enter into the heart. The heart must be ready in order to attain that artha that the spiritual master is trying to give. This is why the heart is so central. The vairagya that pleases Mahaprabhu is not a vairagya that has hardened the heart, but a vairagya that is produced from a heart that is full. The vairagya that is produced from a heart that is filled with emotion for Krishna. That is the vairagya that pleases Mahaprabhu. So the heart should never be neglected in bhakti. The heart should always be pushed forward, because it is in the heart. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santassa daiva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam shyama sundaram achintya guna surupam. This time for real. What's the first line? Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Right? Within the heart, Krishna is found in the sadhus. This is the artha of what the Acharya has given us. And it is within receiving from that heart that we are able to perform bhakti that gives us vairagya. Krishna is everywhere. Krishna is everywhere. But we cannot see him everywhere. And so we go to the sadhu, we go to the Vaishnav, we go to the Guru, and we say, where is Krishna? And then the Guru says, Krishna is everywhere. And we say, but I can't see him. And then so the Guru says, okay, Krishna is in my heart. And he produces forth Krishna in the form of the murti. Right? What is a temple but the place that the Guru has come and said, you do not know that Krishna is everywhere, so I will tell you that Krishna is here. Right? Prabhupada has come to Australia and told them, Krishna is everywhere. And we do not know. We are not able to see. So he says, all of you rascals do not know how to serve Krishna who is everywhere. So here, Krishna is in my heart. And I will give you him in the form of Gopinath, in the form of Radha Gopinath. And now you will know that even though Krishna is everywhere, he is also here. From the heart of the Acharya comes forth the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is how Krishna enters into our lives, through the representation of the Acharya. The heart has to be there. This is the artha, the wealth in the heart of the Acharya that is coming forth. Right? So this is the heart of the sadhu. And then they give Krishna in the form of murti and Krishna in the form of Harikatha. The murti is Krishna carved in the form of marble, wood, all of these things. And Harikatha is Krishna carved in the form of language, carved in the form of sound. When we sit and we hear from great sadhus, whenever the sadhus visiting Sydney, or even the sadhus who are living here, right? Whenever we hear them speak, we can almost see it in front of us. We can imagine with each word they're carving in the form of language, they're carving the form of Krishna. They're taking that Krishna who is in their heart and presenting it out towards us. So the heart is so central in bhakti. And then we have to think, in our hearts, we should be ready. We should be ready to receive that. And if we have the sort of vairagya that hardens the heart, we will not be able to have our heart melted by the fact that Prabhupada came here and manifested the fact that God is here in our dear Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. Because what do we see? Shikha Guru Keto Jani Krishner Swarup Antor Jami Bhukto Shreshto E Dui Rup. Right? This Shiksha, the Guru, right? This Guru is there. And who is he? He is the representation of the very Swarup, the very form and personality of Krishna. And he has taken two forms, Antaryami and Bhakta Shrestha. Antaryami, the Chaitya Guru in the heart, and Bhakta Shrestha, the Acharya outside. Because this is how we first came to Krishna consciousness, isn't it? Right? We first came to Krishna consciousness because something in our heart, something in the depths of our soul told us that this is not true. The way that I understand the world, this is not right. I heard from one Buddhist once, I really like this. Dukkha is when the wheel on a carriage is not properly aligned. Suffering is when you are riding a carriage and one of the wheels is wonky. And things are going forward, but they're not going forward the way they should be. And you think, I need to fix this, right? That is dukkha. Something is not right. And so there's that original Guru in our heart. And we listened to that Guru, because how else could we have come to Krishna consciousness, right? If that Antaryami Guru, that Guru in the depths of our heart did not guide us, right? Evam evanukam paratam aham agyana jam tamaha, right? We are in the depths of darkness. We don't know what direction to go forward, but there is a subtle voice in the heart that told us, go in this direction, go there. And we listened more and more and more and more. And the more and more we listened to that voice in the heart, the more and more it guided us. It became louder and louder, but we still can't fully hear it. We still fully can't understand it. It is an intuition, a feeling. And at one point that voice, it becomes louder, 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 and then it appears in front of us as Bhakta Shrestha. That depths of our heart, that depths of that part of us who is guiding us to the truth appears in front of us as Vaishnav Thakur. And that is the Guru outside. I remember once Pujyapat Devamrita Swami Maharaj, he was speaking. And somebody asked Maharaj, how do we know if it's the Chaitya Guru or the mind speaking? How do we know if the little voice inside is our mind or the Chaitya Guru? And Maharaj, he said, if you don't know what the quiet voice inside is, you should listen to the loud voice outside. That quiet voice inside guides us to the loud voice outside, right? But what has guided us there? It is the heart. It is the conviction of our heart that guides us towards the lotus feet of the spiritual master. Therefore, I find it interesting. People will say, Guru Maharaj, I love you. I love you, Guru Maharaj. Guru Dev, I love you so much. And that is good. We should feel that we love our Guru. But how can we not love the Guru, right? The Guru is the manifestation of that deepest, most truest parts of ourselves, that part of our heart, right, that speaks most truly to who we are. The depths of our emotional world are manifest in front of us, right? How can we not love that personality? If we do not love the Guru, what are we doing? The very core of our heart has appeared in the form of a person before us. We must love that personality. This is why Guru Bhakti is so important. Because we are reciprocating with the fact that this is what Guru is. Guru is not the person who makes you an official member of ISKCON, right? A Guru is not the person who makes you no longer Bhakta so-and-so, right? Guru is not the person who now I can put someone on my altar. Guru is not that person, now I get my little social club within ISKCON, right? That is not what Guru is. Guru is the manifestation of that voice in our heart, the depths of all that we know we can be present in front of us. I heard this definition once from one sadhu. What is the Guru? And they said, Guru is when we think of all the potential that we could be is realized in a person in front of us. All that we know we could be and are not is there in front of us. When we think of all the potential that we could have and then more, when we think of all that we would ever want to be and that person is now walking in front of us, that is Guru. I remember I was in Guwahati. I'll wrap up on this point, sorry, I'm going a little over time. But I remember I was walking in Guwahati when I was there. And I was chanting my rounds and I was walking to get the groceries. And as I was walking, I remember I was going past all the restaurants. They're like these open air restaurants to go to the shopping center, right? And as I was there, I saw it was nighttime. It was like an emergency run. It was Ekadashi the next day, that's why. I thought, oh, Krishna, I don't have enough Ekadashi ingredients. So as I was walking, I saw all these people. And I remember seeing these two young people, a boy and a girl, maybe a little bit younger than me. And they were there, they were eating some momos, right? And they were having a fun time. They were obviously on a date, right? And they were clearly having a good time. They were all being cutesy with each other and laughing and blah, blah, blah. And I remember catching myself as I was walking and I was chanting. I remember catching my mind going, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't this be nice, you know? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice to you know, why am I chanting? You know, why am I giving up 2 hours of my day? Why am I trying to preach? You know, I'm only 25, you know, I have so many more fun things I could be doing. I was thinking this way and I was looking at them, they're having fun and they were laughing and I really thought, wouldn't this be nice, you know? Wouldn't that be nice? And then immediately as I caught that thought entering through my mind, as I was obviously inattentively chanting at that point, right? As I caught that thought going through my mind, instantly I thought of my spiritual master. And I thought of the distance between my spiritual master and myself. I thought about how if you take the tip of the longest hair on my head, it will not even come kilometers close to the soles of his feet, right? That distance between me and my spiritual master, I just brought my mind there. I thought about how when I read Srimad Bhagavatam, right? When I read Srimad Bhagavatam, I learn things. But when my spiritual master reads Srimad Bhagavatam, he cries. And I thought, what is the difference between me and my spiritual master? I thought of my spiritual master relishing Srimad Bhagavatam and then sharing it, right, with the whole world, right? So many people receiving Srimad Bhagavatam out of the joy that he tastes from chanting the holy name and relishing the Shastras. And then I thought, oh, nice. Right? I thought, that's so much nicer. Right? Maybe it's nice, right? As I was passing, I thought, maybe this would be nice. But how much nicer would it be to relish Srimad Bhagavatam in that way? And that way I was thinking, this is the spiritual master. All that in our heart which we wish we could be is there in front of us alive to tell us, this is what you can be. Right? This is the spiritual master. This is the point of the heart. Because if we do not go into the depths of that heart, we will not be able to recognize Guru. And then what is in the depths of the Guru's heart? And I'll wrap up on this point. Right? What is in the depths of the Guru's heart? Right? The Guru then sees us, and they see all that potential that we have to be, that we do not realize. That is why the chastisement of the spiritual master is so valuable. When we are chastised by the spiritual master, it is not coming from anger, frustration. It is the spiritual master saying, I know all that you can be, and you are not becoming it. Right? When I think of my life in Krishna consciousness, the short life that it's been, right? When I think of all of my experiences in Krishna consciousness, I think each and every one was simply one thing. And it was one Vaishnav somewhere seeing more in me than I could see in myself. That is all that Krishna consciousness has ever been. Just this constant process. That in the depths of the spiritual master's heart is a vision of us that we don't even know. That we don't even have. And our hearts should be open to receive that. That in their hearts they are trying to give us the vision of who we can be that we don't even know. So we should not have a vairagya that blocks our heart away. Our vairagya must be that vairagya that comes from opening the heart to the spiritual master and to Krishna. And then, Gaur Bhagavan will become filled with joy. Anyways, I've severely gone over time. My vanchakalpatarubhyascha, kripasindhibhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I'm so sorry, Prabhu. I told you I would open for questions. Next week I'll 10-minute class, 40-minute questions. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.